Hi there, it's Tracie Kiernan from stepbysteppainting.net, and this tutorial is going to show you how to paint this lake with fireworks and a pier and a cute little couple sitting on the pier together. So we're going to go ahead and get started here. This is an 11 by 14 inch canvas, and a lot of this painting consists of this color here. This is Prussian Blue. It's a really pretty dark sort of navy blue color, and titanium white. So that's what I'm loading my palette with. If you don't have Prussian blue, you can use a phthalo blue or any kind of dark blue for this. I'm going to go ahead and divide my canvas in half here. I'm just going to estimate using my fingers where the middle of the canvas is. So the canvas is laying horizontal. I'm just going to take this T-square ruler and line it up with the side and draw a horizontal line across the canvas. So that is going to be our horizon line. It's going to divide where the sky and the water sort of meet together in the middle. And I will be using a 3/4 inch flat wash brush to paint all of the sky in the water. So I'm going to start by loading it in the water and kind of tapping it dry. And I'm going to use the water on my brush to kind of distribute that into the Prussian blue color so it slightly waters it down. And I'm going to go ahead and start at the top of the canvas. So the paint should be pretty thin and flowing because there's a little bit of water that was added to that paint. And I'm just going to cover my canvas. So I'm doing left and right strokes using the full width of the brush, smooth strokes going all the way across the canvas. You don't want to stop in the middle. You want to do your best to make your strokes go all the way across, and you can add just bits of water in there. You want to go about halfway down, because at the halfway point in the sky we're going to start blending in that titanium white. I'm actually going to go a little bit more than halfway down here. If you want, you can go all the way down to the horizon line, but I'm going to start blending the white in here just a little bit. Video speed up just slightly, so press pause when you need to. Take your time, make sure your strokes are going smooth. And when you're ready for the blending, you're going to dip the tip of your brush in the white. So without rinsing it or wiping it, just grab some white on your brush. Start below that Prussian blue and gently blend it up into the Prussian blue. So the part where that light, it's going to create a light blue because you're mixing white with dark blue. But there's a place where that light part is blending with that dark part, and I call that the transition zone. So in that area, you want to brush over it a little bit more so that it blends. And you want your, right here, this is the transition zone. So you just want to keep brushing over it, kind of give that area extra attention, and then blend it up into the sky and blend it down. So ideally the bottom part where the horizon line is going to be brighter, and we want that to be brighter because it's going to have some really pretty contrast with those silhouette trees right there. Those silhouette trees will not show up if the entire sky was just dark. So that bright part just above the horizon line is going to really help make that area pop. But you don't want to over blend it because it's all going to turn into the same bright blue color. You want to make sure the top part of your sky is really dark, so pure Prussian blue at the top, and that's going to help with our fireworks to make those look nice and super bright too. So when you're done with the sky, we're actually going to continue our way down and do the water. The water's done with the same two colors. So I'm actually going to I'm going to use the tip of my brush here. I have a little bit more white on my brush here. I want to make this part a little bit brighter so it kind of stands out. And we can always define our horizon line later, especially when we go and paint our black silhouette line. But I'm just going to kind of do the opposite. I'm going to go from light to dark as I work my way down to create the water. So I'm just going to continue with this light color and start adding in more Prussian as I work my way down. The water has kind of a different texture than the sky. I'm going to use more of the tip. See how I'm holding the brush to kind of use the thin part of it, the tip of it, and that's going to create some more textured strokes versus in the sky I used the full width of the brush and it was smoother. Using the tip is going to give it more of that thin textured in the water. If that's confusing for you, you can just use the full width and just do a gradient of dark to light in the water, because we are going to add water texture regardless later. So the strokes aren't going to make much of a difference, but you can see how I'm not doing the smooth blend in the water. I'm just kind of letting it be dark and then some white streaks in some areas, versus in the sky it's kind of more of a smooth blend. So ideally, you want it to be kind of lighter up at the top and then darker at the bottom, but if it's not that way, it doesn't matter. So I lost my horizon line here. I'm going to use my T-square ruler to kind of define this here. So I'm just getting a little bit of that white and adding it in there so I don't lose my horizon line. You can do the same, or you can just not worry about it now, and then later on when we do the black line for the land there, we'll get our T-square ruler back and define that again. So I'm just applying that lighter color at the top so that I don't lose where my middle ground is here. And then I just want to fill in the rest of the canvas, fill up those gaps, make sure all that canvas is covered, doing a lot of the thin strokes using the tip of my brush to create a little bit of water texture, but that's okay if you don't want to do it that way. Get some more Prussian blue on my palette, and I'm just going to fill this up with that color. For the most part, the water has a lot of the Prussian blue in there, not a lot of bright parts in there. Of course, we have the white kind of blending up towards the back, and then it blends down and it gets dark towards the bottom. And I'm just filling the rest of that up. Again, this is the first layer of water. We'll be doing some more, especially when we do the firework reflections, we'll be adding that into the water and it'll make it look a lot more like reflection in the water. Just want to make sure that everything is covered up. I'm going to go silent here for just a bit while I finish this step. I'm basically just adding more Prussian blue into this and making sure that there's no canvas showing through. A little bit of thin strokes with that Prussian blue all throughout the water, and try not to overdo it because then everything's going to end up blending into the same color. So I'm going to go quiet here and I'll let you know what the next step is after this. Next, you'll need to load your palette with some Mars Black, and I'll be using a round brush for this. So this is a number 8 round brush. Load it in the water and distribute it into the Mars Black so that it becomes slightly watered down. So I'm just kind of letting that water mix with the paint. I'm going to twist my brush to get that paint right there on the tip of the brush. So basically, I'm going to use this black to create the land line that's along the horizon line. I'm going to start by painting a line. So we lost our horizon line, and this is what I was talking about earlier, how we can just define it later by doing this. So I'm using my T-square to paint that line, and that line doesn't have to be perfect at all. It can be wobbly because our land's going to be wobbly anyway. So there's my line going across. There's our horizon line, and the land is going up above the horizon line. So I'm going to make my land elevated on the right and the left, so kind of a small hill, and over here on the left a hill, and it kind of dips down, and I'm going to fill it in using the tip of my brush. Go all the way across. And if you want your land to be kind of a hill all the way across, I had my middle part be very low just to create some variety in there. But if you want it to be kind of a mountain going all the way across, that's up to you. I didn't want it to be too high because I still want that glowing part of the bottom part of our sky to show, especially when we do these trees. And I'm just kind of filling this in. It's okay if your line is not perfectly horizontal or straight. That is perfectly okay. And then we have another piece of land in the lower left part of our painting. So I'm just going to define that shape, kind of a wobbly shape over here on the left, an uneven piece of land, and that's You can make it larger if you want or smaller, but this one is going to be holding a tree, and we're not going to have that go all the way across because we have a pier in our painting, and that pier is going to be over on the right, so we don't want to have land in the way where our pier is going to be. So there's our silhouette lands, and I'm going to go ahead and go on to the next step. So I loaded my palette with titanium white, and I'm going to do some splatter stars. So ideally this could have been done earlier before we did the water and the land, but kind of did this out of order. So I'm going to get a piece of paper and just kind of cover it. But basically I'm flicking the little specks up in the sky for the stars. Just gives another layer of pretty in the sky. And if you've never done the toothbrush technique, you want to slightly water down your paint a little bit and test it out elsewhere before going on the canvas, because you don't want it to be too thick or too thin. You want to get just the right consistency. So you just flick the brush and it creates the stars in the sky. Super fun and effective. I do this for a lot of my paintings that have the sky and the stars. And so then we're going to do our trees next. So I did the trees with the round brush. There's lots of different brushes and techniques you can do with these trees, but I'm just going to use my number 8 round brush for this. So for the tree, I do the center line, and then I do the little branches starting at the top, and I just kind of drag the stroke outwards to create the conical shape of the tree, so the branches get wider as it goes to the bottom. So I'll do this again. You do the middle line, and this one's really tiny, so these are going to be very, very loose abstract strokes. But you want your tree to form that triangular shape, so the branches are not as wider at the top, but then as you work your way down, your branches are getting slightly wider, and it's going to form that triangular shape. So you can do, so this tree maybe not that full, so if you don't want the tree to be as full, you leave a lot of gaps in there. If you like a full bushy tree, you just keep doing more branches that are closer together. I'm going to do a variety of trees. I'm going to do some taller ones, some shorter ones. I'm not going to do trees all the way across. I'm going to leave a blank of space in the middle, but if you want to do trees going all the way across, you certainly can. It's up to you. And if you only want to do like 1 or 2 trees because you don't enjoy painting trees, that's up to you. You can even do it with no trees at all. And so I'm just going to do another tree over here. So again, you just do the middle vertical line, and then you use the tip of the brush to form your little branches that are forming out. I will be going silent here as I finish my trees. Just keep in mind it looks best when you do a variety of heights and widths, and so they're not all the same. I'm done with the trees in the distance. There's going to be another tree in the lower left later on in this painting, but what I'm going to do next is draw the pier. So I'm using a white chalk pencil. You can also do this with a white colored pencil or a regular drawing pencil. So I'm going to draw my pier, and my pier is at a kind of a perspective angle here. So we have a diagonal line, horizontal line where the edge of the pier is, and another diagonal line, and you can see how it kind of the angle of it changes. So the pier is wider at the bottom and not as wide at the edge of the pier. So vertical line, and then the side part of the pier. So this line is horizontal, diagonal, and then I can draw a few horizontal lines going down the pier. And then our posts have to be vertical. So we have a vertical post, and that goes into the water. And then another vertical post, so just 2 vertical posts into the water. Reiterate that diagonal line, horizontal line. So you can sketch that out lightly, and then we're going to go ahead and paint that in. So the 2 colors there's 3 colors in this pier. I'm using the Mars Black. Burnt Umber is that color I just loaded on my palette, and Titanium White. I'm also using a 3/8 inch angle brush. I'm going to use this T-square. This is going to kind of help me get my lines in horizontal enough. I double loaded my 3/8 inch angle brush in the brown and the white, so it's going to be a light brown, and I'm lining that T-square up to the side of the canvas so I can do this horizontal piece that's the edge of the pier. And the angle brush makes it easier to do this because you can cut in and do your straight line. So I'm basically just going to outline the shape of the pier first with the brown and the white combination. And so we have the shape of it outlined, and then we can start painting that shape in. So again, brown and white, and I'm just taking my angle brush and I'm dragging it horizontal using the full width of the stroke. So just dragging it from the left to the right. These are all horizontal strokes, so they're parallel to the edge of the canvas. They're all horizontal and they're going across that shape. So I'm just dragging my brush gently and letting that brown and white kind of blend gently together. It creates that wood look of the pier. And I do go a little advanced with this pier, but definitely if you're a beginner and this is one of your first paintings, you can simplify it. You can just let it be this brown and white color, and you don't have to do all these extra details I'm going to show you with this pier. But just making sure that this is filled in solid. So like right here is a simplified version of this, just this brown white combination, and you could paint your posts and then move on to the next step. But I am going to go a little bit more advanced in here. Just a second. I'm going to just outline the outer part of the shape. And I do end up using my round brush for the posts, but I'm going to grab a little bit of black. So we're going to get darker here. So this is that side of the pier. I'm just going to take my angle brush and paint that side. So that's the left side of our wood pier, and it's darker, so that stands out. And I'm just going to take that black and kind of drag it horizontally on that to create the little wood pieces between each of on the pier, and using the T-square ruler to line up to the top part of our canvas is going to allow our posts to look like that they're perpendicular, or they're parallel to the right side of the canvas. So making sure that they're vertical. I'm using this as the round brush, and I loaded it into the brown and the black, so they're dark, and I'm just using my T-square ruler just to make sure that they're vertical and not going all diagonal, and that's why that's there. So I'm just painting that rectangle shape that is the post of the pier that's sticking in the water, and it's going to look kind of funky at first, like the pier is floating in the water, but when we do the reflection, you can see right there, we'll be doing reflection lines, and it's going to make it look like it's touching the water. So again, I'm going to do my vertical post and fill that in solid, and then a little bit darker. Using a little bit more black here because this is a darker area. There's not much light showing in that area. And again, you can simplify this. You don't have to go into much detail. I'm just taking that black and making that post a little bit darker. I know it doesn't help that my hand is covering that as I'm doing that, but I'm just doing vertical strokes to create that post. And I'm going back on that diagonal line with that darker color. So there's my pier so far. You can kind of see it angled with the different lighting. I'm going to rinse and dry, and I'm going to incorporate some more white on my Pier. Again, advanced. You can move on to the next step if this is something you don't want to do this extra detailed. But I'm going to load it in the white. I'm just going to kind of very gently drag some white horizontal strokes on the Pier. Give it some highlight. So very, very gently, very subtly. I'm holding this brush very lightly, and it is the angle brush, so I'm holding the angle brush so that the point of it is facing away from the direction that I'm moving in. And I can turn it on its side and just kind of drag it a little bit, just creating some more wood texture in this. That's all I'm doing. Grab a little bit of that brown and just kind of adding that brown in there, dragging it. The nice thing about this angle brush is you can use the full width, or you can change it to the tip and do thinner lines, so you can change the versatility of the lines from thick to thin. And then here's the part where I was talking about the reflection. So this is that round brush. I'm just grabbing a little bit of black on the tip of my brush, and I'm doing little horizontal strokes in the water to create the reflection. So now it looks like our Pier is in the water. It's got a reflection. It's not just floating there. And then I'm just taking that black and doing a few more horizontal lines on the actual Pier. Next, I will demonstrate how to do the fireworks in the sky. And I have 3 new colors on my palette. I have Cad Red Medium Titanium White and Cad Yellow Medium Hue. I've freshened up my water, so you want to get rid of all that muddy water. And I'm using a number 8 round brush. So there's a couple different ways you can do fireworks. I'm going to demonstrate it this way with the round brush. And I am doing these fireworks white first so that they'll be nice and bright in the sky, and I'll add color to it later. So I'm just doing the shape of the firework. So when I do fireworks, I start in the middle and I drag each of the stroke outwards. It's a quick stroke the way I do it. It kind of have more pressure on the brush at first, and I slowly release the pressure so that the strand from each of the firework will go to kind of a point. So again, start in the middle. I'm just have a little bit of paint on the tip of my brush. I don't have a lot of paint. I'm not pressing that hard. I'm pressing pretty lightly, a little bit firmer at first, but then, like I said, letting go. And you just release the pressure of the brush and kind of stroke outwards, and it creates that tip. So I'm going to do it again on this one. And you can create a variety of sizes with fireworks. You can make some large ones, some smaller ones. You can have the tail of the firework kind of going down into the horizon. And then when you're ready to add the color, so this one's going to be red. I just, without even rinsing my brush, I grabbed the red, and I'm going to go over my strokes. They're same kind of strokes, starting in the middle and dragging it outwards. I'm not trying to cover up all that white. It's okay if a lot of that white is showing through, but you can see that allowing that base of the firework to be white first makes our red firework super bright. So I'm going to go ahead and do a different color firework here. So I'm going to rinse and grab yellow. So just the yellow on the tip of the brush, and start in the middle and dragging it outwards, going all around, not trying to cover up all the white, just kind of, if all the white is not covered, that's okay. And some yellow strokes kind of go in places where there weren't white. And then this one in the upper left is going to be blue. So I'm going to utilize the Prussian Blue on my palette and mix it with white to create a light blue. This will show up in the sky if your firework is in an area where the sky is dark, like it's dark up here in the upper left. But I'm using that light blue, and it's going to show up, makes it really pretty, and do the little firework stream coming down from it. And then you're just going to keep going with this, creating more fireworks all throughout your sky. This one, I'm going to add white in the middle. just to kind of brighten that middle part up a bit. And then of course when this dries, we can always go back and add a little bit of white in the middle. But this, the fireworks are super bright right in the middle of the fireworks. So I'm going to let that dry before actually doing that. And we'll just kind of add a little bit of white in the middle of that one. It brightens it up. And then I'm going to just go ahead and paint some more fireworks in the sky. So if you want to skip the step of painting it white first, you can just double load it. So for this firework, I loaded my brush in white and red, and I went ahead and did that. And it kind of does the same technique. Maybe not as brighter as the larger ones, so maybe you can do that with the smaller ones. Just double load it in the color in the white. It still makes it bright, but not like super bright. And you're just going to go ahead and do this technique all throughout. You can do as many red ones and blue ones as you want. You can do white ones, yellow ones. If you want to add more colors to your palette, you can even do purple or pink or whatever colors you want. So this firework over here on the right is a little bit different. I wanted it to be more of a rounded one. So I just did straighter strokes instead of strokes that curve down. And then I did some more strokes that kind of go around those straighter strokes so that fireworks can be viewed. This one's maybe at a different angle, or if it's a different shape firework. A heart or a star shaped firework would be fun if you want to get super creative with that. And just going back with the white and adding a little bit of white right there in the middle helps to brighten that up. And I'm just going to keep repeating this technique all throughout the sky, utilizing that white to make our fireworks bright and stand out. Do the tail on the bottom. So I'm just going to go silent here. I'm basically just going to keep repeating this technique, doing different shapes and sizes of fireworks all throughout the sky. The next thing I'm going to show you are the reflections in the water. So pretty simple. You're just grabbing the color. So this one's going to be a light blue reflection, and this one too. So just using the tip of the brush, do horizontal strokes. Just a few loose horizontal strokes on the water with that color of the firework. You want to make sure you double load it in the white and the color that you're utilizing, and just create an area with those horizontal strokes to create the reflection. Ideally, that color should kind of match up underneath the firework reflection, but it doesn't have to entirely match up. You only want a little bit of paint on the tip of the brush. And I'm holding this brush very, very lightly, very loosely. I'm not pressing too hard to create the strokes. The strokes are very, very thin. So very loose strokes. Make sure they're going horizontal. And that one I just added a bit of white to brighten that up. So try to rinse between colors. You don't have orange and brown colors. You don't want your colors to get all muddy. So this one's going to be yellow. I'm mixing the white with the yellow over here on the palette. So just a little bit of yellow right there on the tip of my brush. And I'm just going to very gently do these horizontal lines. So if you press too hard, your stroke is going to be way too thick for this. You want to use just very thin strokes, very lightly. making those loose horizontal lines. So you can just keep adding those reflections all throughout your water. Don't want to go overboard, but just kind of under wherever there's a firework. And even like right here, there's not really a yellow firework above there, but it could still have a reflection coming from another firework that we don't see in the picture. So it's kind of fun just to add the bright reflections kind of all throughout the water. So that's about all I'm going to do with the reflections. You can do more if you want, but you want to just keep it nice and balanced. You still want a lot of that dark water showing through. I'm going to do just a little bit of highlighting on my pier here. So with the white on the tip of the brush, I'm just going to add a little bit of white right there on the end. A little bit of white showing on the posts kind of on the right. A little bit of white over here too as well, because our fireworks would be kind of illuminating a little bit of that pier, but I'm not going to go into more detail than that. So I'm going to rinse, and now that we have the texture in our water in place, I'm going to do this tree that's in the lower left. So same technique for the tree, but this tree is obviously larger because it's closer down into the canvas. So I'm going to load my brush with the black and do a vertical line for this tree. I'll move my hand out of the way here. There, it's a vertical line. And then do your little branches. I know the angle of this camera did not, here we go. But kind of the same thing. So I'm just dragging the strokes, kind of tapping my brush to create these branches going from left to right to create that conical shape of the tree. I'm just dabbing my brush. The tree gets wider as it goes down, and went back up there, kind of made that tree a little bit more fuller. And if you wanted to do a much larger tree, you can. I didn't want to mess with the trees that are up there in the background, so I didn't want this one to overlap that one at all. So it's not as tall. Maybe it's a little tree. And then I can go in and do some little grass marks that are overlapping the water in that area. So just using that tip of the brush, a little bit of black. It's very helpful that the black is slightly watered down, because if you don't water down your Mars black out of the tube, it's kind of thick, might be a little chunky, so it's hard to get it to flow and create thinner strokes unless you add a teeny bit of water to it. That's always helpful. So I'm going to go ahead and rinse the brush, and next thing I want to do is add some highlight to my trees. So we have the fireworks show going on. Our trees would have some glowing highlights on them. This is optional. If you want to simplify your painting and skip this step, you most certainly can. But just loading the white on the tip of my brush, and I'm adding strokes to the edge of this tree, a little bit on the left too, not so much in the middle, just on the right side and a little bit on the left, and it's going to give our tree a little bit of dimension but also highlight. Same thing with the trees in the distance. So those fireworks would be making those trees have a little bit of brightness on the edge of the branches. Just a few little strokes here and there, enough to give our trees some pretty contrast and light hitting those branches. And since our fireworks are dry, you can, if you want, you can go back with the white and just in the middle create some smaller strokes right there in the middle of your fireworks, and that will especially brighten them up, make them super bright and pretty. So adding that white right there in the middle. The next step in this tutorial will be demonstrating how to do the little people sitting on the edge of the pier. And I won't be painting them in black first. I'm just getting this ready. This is the number 8 round brush with the black. I'm just adding a little bit of water to my paint, my black paint there, to make sure it's going to be nice and flowy. But I will be drawing them first with the white chalk pencil, which I highly recommend doing that than just painting them in, unless you feel super confident. So keep this very simple, abstract. It's a silhouette, so we don't have to be detailed, but we have an oval for the head and a larger oval for the body, and just a little diagonal line for the hand that might be resting on the pier. And then the same thing of the person sitting next to this person. So oval, circle, oval for the head, oval for the body, diagonal line going down for resting the hand on the pier. Then when we go paint this in, we're using that round brush, and I don't always go back in the lines that I drew. I kind of improvise and use those lines as a guideline. So here's the body, and notice how the bottom part overlaps the edge of the pier a little bit because both of them are sitting on the edge. And then do the head, so it's a little bit smaller than my actual drawing. And then we'll do the arm going down, maybe a little tiny stroke for the hand that's resting on the pier. And then we'll do the person, the next person that's sitting next to this person. So the body, again, it's got to overlap part of the edge of the pier a little bit to make it look like this one's going to be a girl, so she's sitting on the edge of the pier. Head, we'll have her be a little bit closer, so I made the head, painted the head a little bit more towards the right to make it look like she's kind of leaning on him. And then I'm doing hair, so we don't see the neck or anything because her hair's covering. And then we have the hand. Again, I made her a little closer, so the drawing that I did is more towards the left, but then I went outside of my drawing, so that's what happened there. We don't, maybe they're holding hands, or their hands or his hand is around her shoulder. We don't know because it's a silhouette, but we don't see the other arm. They're just right next to each other. And just kind of touching up the head. Again, take your time, just be very abstract with it. It's nice that it's a silhouette, so we don't have to go into very many details with it. And then when this dries, definitely you can erase the leftover chalk drawing that you may still be showing through. So I'm going to go ahead, rinse this off, dry it, and I'm actually going to add a little bit of white highlight to some of this. So on the right side, if the black is still super wet, you may want to just let that dry and come back to this step. But I'm brave enough to go ahead and do this. So just on the right side of our silhouettes, just a little tiny white little line, reflection from the shadowy figures sitting on the edge of the pier, kind of the firework illuminating them. And then when this dries, so mine is dry here, go ahead and erase any chalk lines that still might be showing through. So this is that chalk pencil that I really like to use. I'll link it in the description of the materials list for this tutorial. But it's very nice. You can draw on the canvas, erases very nicely, and that's it. There's our cute little couple sitting on the pier. I'm going to add some more for reflection in the water, so I'm just taking white, mixing it with that leftover Prussian blue to make a lighter blue. And I just want to go in and add a few brighter reflection lines in the water. Optional, not necessary, but just kind of in the middle, maybe a little bit over on the left. Gives the water a little bit more texture. And then you can do this if you look at your painting and you see, okay, maybe it's too dark in this area. I want to add a little bit of brightness over here just to kind of balance it out. So it kind of depends on how your painting looks. You can always a good idea to take a step back and really look at it and think about what you need to add or touch up. The last thing I'm going to do is add a few twinkling stars in the sky, but other than that, that is it. So I'm just going to do this really quick with the round brush and the white. Just a few brighter stars up in the sky. Just by doing that, kind of makes some of those stars stand out. But pretty much this tutorial is coming to its conclusion. I hope that you enjoyed painting Spectacular Lake with me. Fireworks over a lake with a cute little couple sitting on the edge of the pier. What a fun summer 4th of July painting. Thanks for watching and thanks for painting with me.